Welcome back to the podcast. This is one of our home team episodes. For those of you that are actually watching this on video, Dennis, you want to show us your appropriate position for your mic because it was just perfect.
It's going to have to be held like this.
It's perfect.
For anyone to hear me.
It's perfect. It's perfect audio. We're going to continue to work on improving the audio experience here on the show, but appreciate all you guys who check out these episodes. You know, we have weekly episodes, Gabe and I, we have guests on the show, and then we have these home team episodes where we just dive into different topics. Today, we got a bunch to cover, but we have an exciting announcement at the end. And the exciting announcement is going to be who wins the challenge of the week, which was Max 150-pound sandbag for max reps. Now, we didn't go over exactly what the standards were. I mean, I think maybe we did, but I had a 160-pound sandbag. So I think no, regardless of the rep scheme, I probably won this one. So, but we're going to get to who won that one towards the end. But Gabe sent us a video of his effort.
What would the difference in the standard be here? Like, we're all been doing CrossFit for like 20 years. What's the difference of the standard of a med ball squat?
Oh, no, there's definitely. So, okay, as I was going through
we talked about how you're going to hold it last week until we're blue in the face, but like, we're all clear about what a good squat looks like.
No,
right?
There's a gray area. There's a gray area, which was lapping. So we talked about the lapping because it really became a factor for me. Once I was like at my probably about 300th rep, it became a really big factor on if lapping was allowed or not. Because remember, we talked about where you could hold it at, but we didn't talk about if you could, like, I think Dennis said you can't pause at all. So we got to talk about that.
100% talked about whether or not you could lap the med ball.
100%.
We talked about holding it on your waist, on your belt buckle, on your...
There was some gray area. We didn't really clarify. No, we like, I think we kind of came to the conclusion at the end, like, if you wanted to rest in the bottom with it, fine, right? Because it's hardly rest. Like, the effort required, and I'm not saying I did that.
Who is resting at the bottom of a 150-pound?
That's why. Like, the effort to get back up is so hard that it's not really beneficial.
Okay, we need to save this towards the end because there's going to be some. But I will say, as someone who completed the task with the best effort and intentions in mind, there was definitely a gray area at the bottom of the squat for sure. When you got X amount in, if you held it on your lap-ish, you could keep going for quite a few more. Versus if you just repped them out, there was a big difference.
Right. All right, we'll look at the videotape.
While we're on the topic of squats, a video came across my Instagram feed of some of these Hyrox competitors doing wall balls, and I have never seen a more strange or worse wall ball squat in my life. It was like a video that like got a lot of views. It got a lot of hits. I don't even want to pull it up.
You're not talking about the one that some dude was like wearing like a male thong? Are you talking about that one?
No. I've seen some of those videos too, but those are different videos. No, it was just like the most toe forward squat, completely like knees crashing all the way forward, like no heel down at all. It was a very, very strange wall ball. It looked nothing like a wall ball I have ever seen anybody do in all my years of doing CrossFit and coaching CrossFit and seeing people do wall balls. It was pretty crazy. It was almost impressive how bad the form was to the point in which the ball could have continued to get to the target without like dropping it. It's a pretty interesting video, but I don't want to pull it up. I don't want to call out names. I just want to say it was very interesting.
That's like the one area in Hyrox, right? Where like you actually require judges and the standards are pretty like sketchy from one event competition to the next, sort of, right?
Yeah, but MDV, was this person you're talking about like one of the elites, or was it just some dude trying to like get in a good workout?
This dude looked pretty elite, man. He looked elite. I think I even checked out his profile and might have said elite. Again, I'm not trying to like yuck anybody's yum here. Maybe a little bit on the wall balls because these things were gnarly, man. If you watch this video, you'd be like, "What is going on here?"
Was he not hitting depth, or was it just bad?
It was just bad. It was like his heels were like 6 inches off of the ground. I don't even know he was wearing like moon shoes. It was strange.
Yeah, that's what happens when you get like endurance runners to do stuff that's that they haven't done ever. It is interesting because that's where
bend.
That's where it 100% like really, really stands out how much of a specialist you are when you're a triathlete, an endurance guy. it's tough to do like the simplest movements that we take for granted. And I mean, I was example number one when I first got into these things. These movement patterns are like so foreign when all you do is run, bike, potentially swim really long distances. Although swim has actually been incredibly helpful with like shoulder movements. I attribute the fact that while I've had every lower body injury you could name, shoulders, knock on wood, have never been an issue. And I attribute that to swimming. So I think that that's kind of one of the endurance sports that I think is actually really helpful. But man, running and biking and doing that a lot, just such a like internally like rotated, like repetitive movement. You get wall balls like you probably saw in that video when that's all you do.
Yeah, running and biking like don't transfer into anything else. You know, like squatting transfers into everything, right? If you get good at squatting, like it's going to help you become better at just about everything. But like running and biking specifically don't really translate into becoming better at anything else other than running and biking, right? Like at least distance running.
Yeah, in terms of like transferring into other movement patterns, right?
Right. Yeah, right.
For sure.
Well, sprinting's a different beast, but yes, endurance running is.
Yeah, like long distance running is pretty specific.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, yeah, but you get carryover gains into so many other things, right? Like it's like, yeah, okay.
Well, the difference between the benefit of the exercise or the modality versus like the transferability of what it gives to other types of movement patterns, like squatting, like being able to clean, like being able to, do pull-ups, push-ups, etc.
Yeah, they still build capacity and endurance and stamina, but in terms of actual movements, there's not going to be much transfer.
Yeah. Thank you, Dennis, for this morning was just basically a bunch of conditioning at part of the force track. That's all it was. It was just a lot of conditioning. And I just want to thank you for making me do that. And it was 36 minutes.
Thank you for doing it.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And then, but I had to get in some bicep curls after I was done just to embrace my inner Gabe Yanez. So I finished all the cardio, and then I did some curls just because I'm trying to get bigger biceps so I could always stay larger biceps than Gabe Yanez. So that was my intention this morning, and it was great.
Solid.
Well, I think this segues into one of the things that I was actually chatting with Dennis that I really wanted to talk about. And it's this idea of like maintenance versus progress. Cause Jay, I would argue that like, you're not trying to get bigger biceps. You're just trying to maintain, dude. Like you've done a lot of work, been kind of like gifted genetically to be a big fucking dude. And I think that that's where there is like an important distinction that needs to be made with how to approach training when you're kind of in those two lanes, when you're just trying to like maintain fitness that you've built over the years, or you're actually trying to progress. So maybe a good place to start is, and Dan, I'm curious, since we were chatting about it, like big picture, what do both of those things, like how do those impact how you approach training differently? And is it even realistic to constantly be in like a progress phase in different areas? Like what does that look like?
Well, I mean, just to look at you as an example, perhaps to try to start to answer that question. It's a hard question to answer. Like, you've been very specific around trying to get bigger, right? For the past, year?
2 years, yeah, year.
2 years, okay, so 2 years, right. So, and your training has been very representative of that, right? It's been very specific in terms of the stimulus you're providing on a daily basis is that you're trying to stimulate hypertrophy, right? And so your training is indicative of that and very specific around that goal. But you're still maintaining a certain level of conditioning on top of that. I mean, obviously, recently you've increased the amount of running that you were doing, but prior to that, you were doing fairly minimal amount of conditioning, right? Like that's fair to say, like every once in a while, do some kind of conditioning work. And you still maintained a very high level of conditioning because of all the work that you had put in for years prior to that. So that's a good, and like the progress you saw when it comes to hypertrophy was significant, but it took time, right? It took like a solid, I don't know, you tell me, a solid year till like you really saw like a significant change in your body. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, it's still going. But yeah,
right. So it's still a work in progress, right? And so like you just look at that as an example of like what's required to actually continue to make progress in something versus what's required just to maintain something. And those are two very just different approaches to training depending upon what it is that you're trying to maintain and what it is that you're trying to actually see progress in.
What kind of training age, how advanced does someone have to be to where they have to kind of find something to specifically focus on in like the area of progress and put something else on maintenance? Because I mean, all of us coming from the CrossFit space, the whole kind of approach to it is that you're working on all of these things and you're progressing in all of these things. But I think everyone and a lot of people listening probably have gotten to the point where they plateau. And I think that that's where you have to pick one thing to work at a time. You have to say, hey, I want to get strong right now. I want to increase my conditioning right now. I want to double down on hypertrophy right now and let everything else go to maintenance. I know that a question that I get from a lot of people that follow Flex, for example, is like they're worried that their conditioning is going to go completely out the window if they double down here. But then they also tell me that, hey, my goal right now is to add muscle. And so it's always a tough conversation of like, well, let's focus on this one thing because it requires focus, because putting on muscle is very hard. And it's that much harder when you're in your 30s and your 40s, it could be done. But you kind of need to put everything else on the back burner, because if you're trying to also do Metcons, also do conditioning, also do all of these things, you're just going to like delay the progress that much more. Like I can speak to it like you were saying, like I'm not even, I'm in my mid 30s and it took a year of like very, very dedicated work to even just see a difference. So because I know that training age and biological age are two very different things. Like when do people have to start or would benefit from kind of specializing a little bit if they have specific goals?
Yeah, I think you have like 18 to 24 months of like consistent progress when you're doing like mixed type of training where everything can simultaneously improve. And depending upon what have you been doing up to that point, what are the types of training you've exposed yourself to, but usually somewhere within, let's call it even 12 to 24 months, you can see pretty consistent, steady progress before you're going to achieve a plateau. Just in general, I mean, again, that there's circumstances outside of that won't fit that neatly, but after that, you're probably going to stagnate, you're going to plateau, and you're going to have to change something with respect to your approach to training, to specialize and identify like, this is something I need to get better at relative to these other things. So I need to spend some time putting these things aside and really focus on this one particular thing for a period of time.
Jay, and you've probably seen that with your Train Hard Men's Club guys, right?
Yeah. I mean, dude, we're talking about a lot of different things here. I think one thing that's really unique, or at least that I've experienced in my life, is that muscle stamina goes away really quick for me. So like, and pure like high rep numbers. So like my deadlift has just dropped off because I'm not exposing myself to it as much at very high numbers. But my conditioning is really easy to get back and my conditioning stays the same. Maybe that's just where I'm at in my journey. Like I do a lot of conditioning because I'm on the mats a lot. I do a lot of like moderate loading for high reps, and I don't really hit these like 1 rep maxes or super high numbers. So because I don't get much exposure to it, it's just not there. It's not available for me because I don't expose myself to it. But in regards to the men's club, I mean, dude, we've been going at it for 18 months now. And I mean, bro, just the results are just absolutely insane. I mean, if you're a guy out there listening to this and you're not in the shape that you want, if you really want to get in better shape, like we've been gifted to get in better shape so much faster than you think you can. And we're seeing it firsthand with the men's club, dude. I mean, people show up there once a week and they get in 3 or 4 other training days during the week. And these guys are getting super fit, super fast. Now, if you want specialized training or if you want to bulk up, that might be a little bit different. But as for general fitness is kind of what we're shooting for at the men's club and to look a certain way. And dude, I'm telling you, over the last year, the transformations we've seen have been incredible. It's amazing, actually. We're going to document more and more of it.
I think a lot of this comes down to like the specificity of your goal. And then the demand of your training will need to be as specific as the specificity of your goal, right? Like if you want to be 4% body fat and get on stage, you're going to have to do things in a very specific way to achieve a look that very few people can achieve, because it takes a lot of discipline and it takes a tremendous amount of consistency and it takes a very specialized plan to get there. You want to run a sub 5 minute mile and you're starting off at 7 minutes, you're going to have to do a lot of very specific training to get yourself in that condition. train's going by. But you know, for me, man, like fitness for me, it seems to be a little bit different, especially from Gabe, where Gabe's at right now, because Gabe always, and I have a tremendous admiration for Gabe, and I've told him this on many, many occasions, that like he can follow a plan, a very specific plan, probably better than anybody I've met in a very, very long time. And if he puts a goal on the horizon, he'll do whatever it takes along the way to get there. And for me, like I've with fitness, especially recently, it's become more about like feeling really good and looking really good and not necessarily having as much of like a very specific goal in mind. And this gives me the opportunity to train in a whole lot of different ways, but it comes down to consistency of making sure that I'm doing something. I'm getting 3, 4, 5 days of training in. I'm getting some lifting in every week. I'm getting really good sweats in with some good aerobic conditioning in there. And I'm making really good, solid nutrition choices more often than not. And I've been able to achieve a look that like I'm pretty happy with for many, many, many years. And it's not, I'm not the biggest guy, obviously. I'm not the most shredded guy, but like I've gotten to a level that I feel really good at, and I can hold on to that with consistency and training and not necessarily feel like I'm always under the thumb of like a really, a training plan that I have to stick to. I don't work well in that kind of training environment. I like to have a lot more freedom. I like to show up and be like, hey, I want to do this today. Whereas Gabe, I think, looks at what he's got to do and like he's going to go do it. So I think there's very different goals here. Like I want to look good. I want to look good. I want to have a powerful, strong, lean body. I want to have a good feeling about myself. Like I don't want to feel like constantly bloated or inflamed. And all those things just come down to making sure I'm doing a few simple things consistently.
Hey, Dennis, I have a question for you. How many rest days a week do you take?
Usually 1 or 2. Yeah, on average, usually 2.
What'd you say again?
Full rest?
Yeah, I usually do full rest. Yeah.
Because I just heard MDV say, 3-4 days, you do 1 or 2, because we put up a thing on social media saying my training, and someone's like, you don't rest. I told him, I was like, I can't remember the last time that I didn't do jujitsu or one of our workouts from Train Hard. I cannot remember. It just, I don't know. It's just a good question. It's something I'm thinking about. Well, but the one thing I want to say is that ever since I've been following the Force Track, which is our strength conditioning, pretty like I'd say regularly, there are built-in rest days. And so I'll be able to, I add in other workouts or I add in jiu-jitsu on those days. And what's interesting, because we're rotating between strength and conditioning and we're not like RP 10 every day, I think that's one of the reasons why I've been able to get away with that for so long, is that I'm adjusting my intensity versus not doing anything. It's just a different way of training than most people think about.
So just to clarify, I'll do something nearly almost every day, whether or not that means doing 3 sets of max pull-ups and push-ups. And if I'm in a condition where I can squat, I'll squat. I like to move. I like to get outside. I like to go on a bike ride. I'll ride the C2 bike for 20 or 30 minutes. But like if I'm talking about training days where I'm actually getting like a really good workout for me, probably four times a week would be like really tough training days. And then the other 2 or 3 days I'm doing something that's less intense.
That's where I think that, because MDB, when you were talking about like the example of like the 4% body fat trying to get on stage, like extreme bodybuilding example, I think, and maybe you guys think differently, that a lot of people listening, a lot of guys listening do have a more aesthetic focused goal. Like if you were to ask them like, what is it that you want more than anything else out of your fitness? They want to change the way they look. And that usually requires putting on some muscle. And like I said, that's very hard. I think that a lot of people would benefit from having something that's very structured, having something with progressive overload, having actual rest days where you're not going out and, just doing like garbage volume and not letting your body actually recover from the adaptation. Or also probably not working hard enough when they actually go into the gym. And I know that was throwing a lot of stuff out there, but I do think that most people not necessarily want to get stage ready just to break from this plateau because they've been doing, whether it's CrossFit or jumping around different programs for longer than that 18 to 24 month period, would really benefit now from something that's a little bit more specific. And I know that nutrition is just a completely different side that a lot of people could just benefit just from cleaning that up. But purely from a training standpoint, I think that a lot of men specifically listening, once they like peel back the layers, like what's your actual goal? What do you actually want? Would benefit from, I mean, again, completely biased here, but something like Flex, something with that approach, as long as they're doing just enough to maintain conditioning for like general health and longevity, but like you're not getting the benefit from the Metcon. You just aren't for your goals.
All right. I think that this is, you're biased, but
for sure.
I somewhat agree with you. I would say that most people, though, that I don't think the problem is like needing to put on more and more and more muscle for the general dude. I wouldn't say that that's like the general solution to getting the look that most people need. I think that there's some like nuance there. I think that you got to lose fat. I think that you have to take the fat that's covering up the layers of muscle that you have and expose it. And you can do that in a number of different ways. Yes, gaining muscle, obviously you're going to look better if that's something you want to do. But like, I think like a lot of guys want to lose 10 or 15 pounds too, and show what they have underneath that 10 or 15 pounds. You can see some big changes there, man. I think that's also a valid route to take. Just a little bit of a different approach, highly specific on what you're putting into your body nutrition wise, and maybe a little bit more wiggle room with the type of training that you're doing. Flex is fantastic. I mean, I love the Flex programming. I think you do a really good job of giving people really great workouts, good volume. The workouts are really fucking tough too. I think it's just a different point of view on that point though.
I've enjoyed lately this like AMRAP style. Lately I've been doing more like these strength focused AMRAPs, and those have been super fun for me in particular. Only because it allows me to kind of elicit this like chasing the clock, trying to get max reps, but not so much I'm like laying in a puddle of sweat afterwards. So I've really enjoyed strength focused AMRAPs, and I feel like they've been really helping me. Speaking of which, I have a question. So this morning I'm training hard, always. And
RP7 Khalipa.
So here's what we said. My RP7 is the typical guy's RP10. That's been the goal. That's always the goal. My goal is always to be the most fit. Anyways.
I mean, sticking to that point, I think your RP like 3 is most people's RP10, but that's besides the point. I think
it doesn't change the fact I can still hit RP10.
Of RPE is, if it's an RP10, it's an RP10. It should be relative to your fitness level.
Dude, I hit an RP10 a couple of days ago with these devil's presses that we were racing the clock. Dude, I hit RP10 multiple times a week. Anyways, but back to what I was saying. I wrote this down. Do some people, is sweat an indicator of performance? And so the reason why I brought this up is this morning, I'm working out with someone and we're 36 minutes into a workout and I'm not really sweating much. It's cold. And he's like drenched. And he's like, dude, you're just so fit that you don't sweat. And I was like, nah, dude, I don't think that has anything to do with that. I just think that some people sweat more than others. What has your guys' experience been with that? Is it an indicator of your fitness, or is it just an indicator that some people sweat more than others? Because I've been around people that are hella fit that sweat a ton.
I don't think it's an indication of anything. Some people just sweat a lot, some people don't.
Yeah, that's what I think too.
I sweat so much.
Yeah, I'm a sweater.
An ungodly amount of sweat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's a correlation there, but obviously there's a correlation of if you're not in great shape, workouts are just going to hit different. You have people that I remember, people that start sweating on the warm up. You make them hold, do some squat therapy against the wall and they're sweating buckets. Yeah. Actually, that's a bad example. Squat therapy is incredibly hard. I'll sweat doing squat therapy against the wall.
But as he's like sweating like crazy, he's looking at me. I'm like, all right. But you're right. It's not a. I don't think it's an indicator of how fit you are. It's just some people sweat more than others, and that's what I gathered. But I'm sure there's some data out there we can go look up. But that was just my hot take was that.
Now, to speak to quickly, like talk the subject of like RPE 7 versus 10, and Like, I think that's a big part of the discussion too, with respect to progress versus maintenance. Like, if you're in maintenance mode, you can hang out RP 7, 8 on the regular and pretty much maintain what you got in terms of strength, conditioning, you name it, muscle. But if you want to continue to see progress, you have to find opportunities to push the intensity, the effort on a regular basis to ensure that you're continuing to see progress. So that's a big part of the conversation, irrespective of the goal, whether it's like, when you asked me the question earlier, I'm thinking of it in terms of like the paradigm of CrossFit, like increasing work capacity, just in general, right? Like getting stronger, improving your conditioning, stuff that you can measure, objective metrics. And, so I'm kind of thinking of it in those terms, but regardless of how we're talking about the outcome and what the goal is, I still think that that's maybe the biggest part of the equation isn't going to be the programming and how you change that, but it's going to be the continued effort that you put into your program if you want to continue to see progress. Because it's hard. Like, you guys know this. You train long enough, and you just start to like lose the will to go to RPE 10 in your training. Like, you only have so much of that in the reserve, like over the course of your lifetime. And like, so I think you just reach a point psychologically where you're like, I'm just going to hover here at 7, 8 and be fine with it. And I'm just going to maintain what I got. I think if you want to continue to see progress anywhere, you have to dig in and find opportunities to just put in more effort into your training, which is hard. It's easier said than done.
This is an interesting conversation, because I think some of this also comes down to just like being like, and I don't want to get too woo-woo here with 4 dudes on a podcast, but like getting like being
no,
okay.
I will not take my shirt off, MDV. No.
Like being okay with like who you are and understanding like, I'm cool with like looking this way. I'm cool with how I feel. I'm making good choices. And like, there's always this like constant, like, I got to get better. I got to be leaner. I got to be more muscular. I got to like do more. I got to get a faster time. That's cool. I'm not saying don't train hard. I love training hard, man. I love getting after it. I love working out. It's been one of the greatest gifts to me of my life, is being able to train with friends and train hard and even train by myself. And you get this like awesome introspection. But at some point too, like, it's okay to like work out just to work out, to feel the workout. It's okay. Not everything has to be like, I have to work out to get to this goal. Like, you get so wrapped around the axle with some of that stuff that like, it starts to become stressful. You start to look at your workout and like, you start to get too stressed about the result. Did I get a great workout today because I didn't sweat as much, or like I didn't hit this weight, or I didn't hit this amount of reps? And I think that that's one of the things that like, I love what CrossFit has done for so many people. But one of the things that I think it has made a little bit strange in the realm of fitness is that like, it's so data driven and result driven based on scores that I think sometimes we forget that like, you can work out just to feel good, and it might not be the most optimal workout. You might not lift the most weight that day. You might not get the best sweat in, but like, if you felt good about what you did that day, that's like greater than anything else that you could ever, at least in my opinion, greater than any result that you could get writing down on paper or putting a score down. And I've just come to embrace a little bit more of that, which is like loving working out, loving what it does for my body, and not necessarily worrying so much about like, am I 7% body fat right now, 10% body fat, 12% body fat, whatever. Like, am I happy with how I look and how I feel? Yes. Did I get a good workout in today? Cool. Check the box. Let's move on. Go enjoy some other aspects of your life. I'm not saying don't take your fitness seriously. Take it seriously. Get it done for sure. Be consistent with it. But we get so wrapped around the axle of like, does everything need to be driven by like a very specific end state goal versus just utilizing your body, getting out there and feeling good?
Well, I think what you're alluding to though is like, that's you, right? I think that's you, and that's probably me.
I'm offering a different perspective for sure. Then
I agree with you.
I have to be doing this at this weight, at this RPE, at this time, to get to this state.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people that haven't had the training age and the amount of years, they like that idea of having things that they're chasing down, right? Like the feeling is it's just a different vantage point, right? Where they're goal setting based on like, hey, it's really important for me to get to this because they haven't been there before, right? And so then that is where it becomes really important. But if you've been there for 20 years, like I've been training at least 20 years, it's just different for you and me than maybe someone who's like newer, taking fitness to the next level. And that's where the goal setting, that's where those things start to really come into play, in my opinion. And then eventually I think their goal should be to get to the point where you're talking about, right? Eventually, long term, they should be able to get to a point where they've achieved the things they want to achieve through fitness. They've developed the consistency, and now they can look at it through a different lens. You know what I'm saying? But it takes, I think, training age to get to that point, if I'm describing that right.
Yeah, it's maintenance. That's maintenance mode.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there you go.
But there's nothing wrong with maintenance.
No,
there's nothing wrong with it.
Not at all.
There's nothing wrong with that. Not everything needs to be training for performance. I love the workouts that we put out through Train Hard. I think they're a fucking fantastic solution to get guys who might not be super happy with how they look or how they feel, or even if you are and you want to get to that next level. There's different ways that you can approach what we do at Train Hard. I think we put out fucking fantastic programming, by the way. But I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't think there's just like a value judgment of like, oh, you have to be training for constant progress versus training for consistency and maintenance. I think that putting a value judgment on either one of those is kind of dangerous. Both of those things can be very, very effective. Both of those things can be fulfilling for people. And both of those things can ultimately help you get to a state in which you're happy with. Where you're happy with your fitness, your life, how you look, how you feel, all those things.
Which again, I think comes from training age. Like I would put myself in that category. Like, I mean, dude, I'm long past setting PRs on anything, period. But I train because I still push myself. I still want to see what I'm capable of doing. And then I try and find other areas to win at. But yeah, I would put myself in a maintenance training mode because I'm never going to PR my snatch again, ever. Like, it's just never going to happen. And I'm okay with that, you know? But I could find other goals that I could chase down while maintaining my fitness. I guess the way I look at it.
Yeah, but so, like, you know, it's like, I'm sure you guys see people at your gym and see people that sign up for the app also that are new to this stuff. And like, maintenance is not appropriate for them. They shouldn't stay in maintenance. They need to see progress because they haven't put the time and effort and work in to be content with just staying where they're at. So it's just, you got to meet people where they're at. That's all.
Dennis, for sure. And I think for those types of individuals, showing up and getting a workout in 3 times a week, that's huge progress. That can lead to humongous progress. And even if your goal isn't super specific, even if you're just saying, hey, listen, I want to do this force track sounds cool because it has these types of days. This flex track sounds cool because it might elicit this result. Even if you just participated in one of those programs 3 times a week and you were coming from a place where you weren't doing a ton of training, you're going to see tremendous amounts of progress. And then as you go, you can kind of evaluate, how do I look? How do I feel? Am I continuing to move in a direction I want to move? Do I want to get more specific with my goal now? And I kind of look at those things as being a little bit different. Like the progress that we just talked about, it isn't necessarily like progress for performance-based training. It's like progress because you're getting off your fucking ass and you're going to the gym and you're bettering yourself that way. And I think that that's a humongous step in the right direction.
The way that I think about it is the time to make progress for me specifically with something that's important to me, which is a certain aesthetic, is just now. And every year it's going to get tougher. Every year I'm going to get busier. Every year, you know, the certain things that I'm trying to change about my body, like my biology is going to be fighting against me. So for me, and hopefully the advice that I try and put out there for anyone that has similar goals, which again, I know are a lot of people, is like, the time is now to be in a progress goal. I think delaying it, specifically if you're not already where you want to be, is just something that I would try my hardest to discourage people from doing. Because I know a lot of people fall into this bucket of they've worked out for a long time and have seen progress, but have plateaued in many ways to what I think is like would ultimately give them fulfillment from what they do in the gym, which is changing how they look and having a little bit more confidence and being the guy that like can't wait until summertime to take your shirt off and like literally look different than all the other parents around. I know that for a lot of men, that's incredibly, incredibly important. And again, when I found out that I was going to be a dad, like it just kind of clicked, because for me, all of my life, I've always been an athlete, but I've never looked, at least in my mind, like an athlete the way I wanted to, because I was always in endurance sports. I was always like a little smaller. I was always skinnier. And it just kind of clicked where like, I mean, time's fucking now. Like, you know, like I can sit here and be like, hey, you know, I wasn't that gym rat as a teenager or in college, but like, you know, it's only going to get tougher when I'm 35. It's only going to get tougher when I'm 40. It's only going to get tougher when I'm 45. And that kind of switched this goal on like, let me go all in. And it's actually really funny. Dennis was the guy that I texted when I was like, dude, I'm trying to get as jacked as possible. And I remember he responded. He was like, I fully support this goal. And it was great. That's when I bought the cable machine and everything.
I support this message.
Oh, it was such a like Dennis response to it. But that's kind of my take on the progress versus maintenance for probably a lot of people listening, is just acknowledge that if you do kind of do the introspective, like, hey, what do I want to get out of fitness? And aesthetics is a component of it. Like, man, the time to go all in on progress is now, and like get to the point where you have earned to be in maintenance. It's kind of like my
Gabe, I sent you that video this morning. I was all fired up, and because I was having a conversation with somebody, and I was just like, a lot of people think like this is the best they're going to feel. And I was specifically talking about actually testosterone this morning. And because I got a text message from a buddy of mine, and I had sent him a message. I said, hey, how has everything been going? I had referred him to Blokes, which is our blood work the company we work with. He went and got blood work done. So I'll just share this story because I think it's really powerful. So the buddy calls me. He's like, hey, he's a law enforcement officer. He has 5 kids. He's a good friend of mine. Comes to the men's club. Great guy. He's like, dude, I train. I follow your training. I go to jiu-jitsu. I do everything that we talk about, right? I eat right. I do everything. And I'm like, okay. And I know he does. And he's like, but dude, I can't sleep at night. And I feel brain fog during the day. And I feel like shit. And I just took a deep breath. I was like, hey man, when's the last time you got blood work done? And he's like, I haven't. So I had him go get blood work through Blokes. And so I texted him the other day. This is a really important thing for people just to pick up on. Yes, it's a pitch to go get blood work done. So I texted him. I said, how are you feeling? How are you feeling ever since you got your blood work done? He's like, it's been 2.5 weeks. I noticed an immediate change. When I sleep, I feel recovered, way less brain fog throughout the day. It's pretty amazing. He said, I had the best sleep I've had in 15 years last night. It's like, dude, because he got his blood work done, recognized there was an area of improvement, and got some support from that. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is that if a guy is listening to this right now and you think this is the best you're going to feel in your life, right? Dude, that's you could feel better than you feel. Like, I'm 39, I'm turning 40 this year. I feel better today than I did 10 years ago or 5 years ago, right? Maybe not at my peak of CrossFit, but right now, over the last 5 years, I probably feel the best. And it's because I'm locked in on nutrition. I'm locked in on my fitness. Obviously, I haven't drank in a month, and I'm getting my blood work regularly done to check in on those things. So if you feel right now like, dude, I'm in my mid-30s, it's the best I'm going to feel, dude, you're wrong. Start training hard, start doing all these different things. And I guarantee you a year from now, you're going to feel better than you do today. That's my inspiration for this morning. Man,
So that's that's kind of a good segue into the second part of your initial question, Gabe, that you kind
holding
of
us
posed,
on track, Dennis. Good job.
Like the topics.
I appreciate it.
Well, no, because
someone
like
what segue can I go off of right now?
At what point does maintenance equal progress? Right? Like, as I'm turning 47 in May. I don't expect to see continual progress in anything really at this point. But if I can maintain certain things, whatever that is, aesthetically, objective measurements in the gym, however you want to define it, like, is that actually considered progress? Because inevitably at a certain point, as you age, things are going to drop off. Things are going to start to go south. They're going to go backwards, whatever it is. So at what point do you consider just being able to maintain how you look, how you feel, how you perform as considered to be progress, right? Like, it's actually improvement. The fact that it's not degrading. And I don't know if there's an answer to it, but I heard a guy by the name of Joe DeFranco pose the question on Instagram. He's like an old school strength coach out of New Jersey, like real stereotypical. Of
course he's from New Jersey.
Yeah, stereotypical.
Joe
like,
DeFranco.
Yeah, like loudmouth Italian guy from New Jersey. He's classic though. He's great. He's been around
Eating
forever.
a meatball sub.
Yeah, he's awesome. He puts out really good stuff. And he walks the walk. He's the real deal. But he posed the question on Instagram, and it got me to thinking, because it's just an interesting topic for discussion. I mean, at least I'm at that point now. You guys aren't quite there yet, but you will be soon. Where something like just being able to maintain my 500-pound deadlift, yeah, I consider that to be progress, right? Like, that's not maintenance for me at this point. So I don't know. I don't even know if there's a question in there, but I think it's an interesting thing to consider.
You're not human though, Dennis. I mean, bro, I mean, if people watch this on Spotify or on YouTube, like, you don't look 47. You look 37 and you deadlift 500 pounds at 47. Right. It's offensive to people who are listening, right. Including me.
Dan, I'm curious that if you know, because maybe this can start kind of answering the question a little bit, but is there like an age where there is supposed to be like a quote unquote significant drop off in strength specifically and kind of all that stuff in men? Or is that kind of like, vary so much? Right?
Like, here's statistics. I don't know them off the top of my head, but you hear people talk about, like, after the age of 40, you're going to see like a 1 to 3% decline in strength and muscle mass every year or something like that. 40 is always used as kind of a tipping point as to when you're going to start to see a decline, I think. Largely related probably to testosterone levels starting to drop. Obviously, it's going to depend upon the individual person, for sure. But I think that's generally considered like the point at which things start to decline.
Right. So take this for what it is. But according to AI, peak strength and muscle mass is between 25 and 35. Early decline, so starting around 30 to 40 years, men experience a gradual decline in muscle mass and strength, losing about 3 to 5% of muscle mass per decade. And then accelerated decline. So this is where you are, Dennis. Yeah. 40s to 60s is when strength declined by 2% per year and muscle mass decreased by 1% per year.
Fuck that.
So Dennis, you were right.
Fuck you, AI.
Did you guys see that there's like a new Chinese AI that came out called
DeepSeek?
DeepSeek. And I can't take credit for the joke because I was watching a clip of Jon Stewart talking about this. Whether or not you're a fan of Jon Stewart, whatever, it just came up and I was watching it. And Jon Stewart was like, does anybody find that there's any justice that AI's job was replaced with AI? I was dying. Right. I was dying laughing because of, all the talk about how AI is replacing all these jobs. And then the Chinese came out, did something faster, cheaper. And then a lot of the AI technology stocks dropped pretty fast. To come back to the training conversation, man, I'm kind of like Gabe and I, we see eye to eye on a ton of things, man. I think Gabe and I have a lot of things in common, but one of the things I think we kind of differ on is just our approach to fitness and our approach to nutrition. And I might be in the minority here, man, but like, I want to eat steak. I want to work out. I don't really give a shit what the workout is sometimes. Like, give me a pull-up bar, give me some dumbbells, give me a barbell, give me a C2 bike. I want to eat steak. I want to work out. And then I want to just do that over and over and over again. Over and over and over again. That's what I like to do. And it's given me great results. I feel good. I really enjoy the meals that I have. I really enjoy the training that I do. It's not as structured as the plan that, Gabe might have, but like, man, for me, the simpler I can make things sometimes, the better it is in terms of my ability to just follow and do that thing over and over and over again. Might not be everybody's approach, but for me, the simpler I can make my nutrition approach, and it is definitely elimination based, the simpler I can make my fitness approach, and it is definitely just get some good work in on a regular basis, the better it is for me. That's just the way that I'm wired. And it works well for me. I feel fucking great when I follow that. And when I don't follow that, I feel way off track. But it sets me up for success in almost everything else that I do. And I've come to know myself a lot better over the past few years, for sure. And there's just certain things that I have to do. And if I do those things, I'll run through a brick wall. When I don't do those things, I feel like trash.
What part don't we see eye to eye on?
No, I mean, the fact that like I don't like counting macros at all. I think counting macros for me is something that I probably never want to do ever again in my life. I like eating food that I want to eat that makes me feel good in the volumes that I want to eat them. And for me, it's much more of like a quality decision. Like I'm a big quality guy when it comes to food choices. And then for working out, like just not having necessarily as structured of a plan, being able to pick and choose things. And, you know, why I love the Train Hard app is I can go in there, I can look at the EMOM workouts that I've programmed over the years. I can look at the force workouts that Jason and Dennis get after, and I can look at the flex stuff and I can just do what I want to do. And as long as I'm getting something in like that, I feel really great.
Yeah. I mean, I can explain kind of the thinking behind why I love like the structure and having something to do, and right, wrong, or indifferent, but this is just how I feel. I just feel like I'm spinning my wheels if I'm not working towards something. It feels random and unmotivating to know that I haven't like put a brick down for this house that I'm building. Like to me, like the envisioning of the house is so incredibly exciting. And, you know, one thing that I learned by, you know, with this injury and not even being able to run the marathon was that I really didn't need to even run the marathon and get the sub 3. And I know I signed up for another one and I still want to do that because I enjoyed like the process for training it so much. And I know I benefited from it so much, but it would have been completely different to say, I'm just going to go out and start running and like, you know, I'll do some easy runs. I'll do some hard runs. I'll kind of just depend how it feels. Like to me, the exciting part is knowing that I have one VO2 max session a week, I have these easy runs a week, I have this long run, I'm progressing, my paces are going down, my heart rate is staying lower. Like to me, like being able to like visually see whether it's on an app or on my programming or on a spreadsheet, or now I have a running thread on AI that I go back and forth on my programming, which has been fascinating to see those things tick in the right direction towards a goal. I heard Hunter McIntyre say this the other day. I really, really liked it. His approach to training is like super, super analytical. And it's been, as much as he can be a polarizing figure, it's been fun to follow. But he said that training for a specific goal is like a math equation, because it is. It's just like, oh, you want to run a sub 3 hour marathon? You need to have this aerobic capacity. You need to have this VO2 max. And we just, depending on where you are now, we reverse engineer what that is, figure out how long is realistic to get there. We can do that aggressively and it'll be a little shorter, but then that comes with the pros and cons. We can do it conservatively and give you plenty of time. That has its pros and cons, and you just do it. And for me, that like almost like problem solving approach to it is fascinating. And it's the thing that motivates me every day to go out there. To whereas if I went out there and I was like, I'm just going to work out today, it wouldn't even make me like feel better or feel good, because I know it's not pointless, but to me it feels pointless if it doesn't have an end goal. And that's just a personality thing. I don't think it's,
for sure.
better
I think that's just
or
a personality
worse or
choice,
anything. It's
sure.
just like, that's the thing that I'm like, man, like this puzzle piece that was supposed to be a very specific puzzle piece to the puzzle that I'm building fit perfectly today. And there's like nothing more satisfying than that. But if I'm like I don't even know what the puzzle is, like I'm just kind of like throwing pieces on the table, like that just to me just isn't fun. And the macro thing with nutrition is exactly the same thing, because there's nothing more satisfying to me now that I know that it's basically like a knob for me, where like gain weight, like turn 2 ticks this way, lose weight, turn 2 ticks that way. And I know exactly what that is. And I can just like, if I want to gain weight, like I'll do it now. If I want to lose weight, like I'll do it now. It's just so black and white to me. And I love that, I guess like numerical sense of it. And I don't think that that'll always be the case for me, because that does take certain time and energy that I have now that I might not have later. But that's kind of how I approach it and what fires me up. And I don't think that that's everyone, obviously, but definitely works for me. And you kind of figure that out.
Hey, Dennis, speaking of which, what'd you hit on that log bar?
Oh, yeah.
220.
220. So
220. That's what I have to be able to hit in my competition, 220.
Okay. So for all the listeners, we were on the podcast and Dennis committed to a strongman competition. And because of you guys, we contributed and got Dennis a log bar.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Thank you to all of our podcast listeners. And so we got him a log bar, and I was giving him shit. I was like, "Oh, dude, 350, whatever." But I forgot, man. It's a clean and press. It's not a clean and you can't rebend underneath it, right?
No, you can. I think there are different rules across different competitions. The one that I'm in, you just got to get it over your head however you want.
Okay.
And I tried to split jerk it because I'm pretty proficient with a split jerk. I mean, I haven't done it in a while, but to split jerk that thing is awkward as it's really awkward. So it felt really uncomfortable to do it. So I was trying to push press it as best I could, but because of the positioning of it and how big it is, it's hard to even get like too much drive from your legs. I got to play around with it more. I wasn't very proficient my first time around. I basically strict pressed 220.
So for
more or less,
for anybody listening who doesn't know what we're talking about with the log bar, it almost looks like an automotive type of part. It's a specialized type of barbell, quote unquote, that has a cylinder that has handles inside the cylinder, and then you load the sides of the bar. And the tough part about it is that it creates this distance away from your center of mass, and it's a very awkward type of lift. The rotation of the bar is different because I don't think the cylinder moves. The collar, nothing moves on it.
Nothing moves.
And it's about like 6 or 8 inches away from your body, maybe even more than that when you're trying to put it overhead. Very, very tough piece of equipment to use.
Yeah. It's fun though.
There it is. You lap it, you roll it up, and you press it. This guy, hey, bro, this guy right here, he's hitting like 300 easy. Why aren't you doing that?
Dennis, you said you have to
450 pounds.
You said you have to hit 220 for your competition. Is it like going to be max reps, or is that a minimum of what you need, and then you build for a max load?
It's a medley. So you do an axle clean and jerk at 205, I think. Then you do the log at 220. And then you take a circus dumbbell, a 130-pound circus dumbbell, like the big dumbbells, and you got to clean it to the shoulder and press it overhead, and do that as many times as possible in the remaining time on a minute clock.
Yes.
So it's like clean and jerk, log press, dumbbell press. Yeah.
Please get tons of videos from your competition. That's like coming up in 2 weeks, right?
February 22nd. So it's it's 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Yeah,
Nice.
Dude, I'm so excited for that. So speaking of which, let's.
Are you gonna wear a singlet, Dennis?
I don't know what to wear, dude. I'm laying in bed. I was laying in bed last night.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Like, what am I gonna wear? I'm like looking at like what these people wear. They have all sorts of sleeves and like specialized belts.
Get all the gear.
I don't know what kind of shoes to wear. I don't know what kind of t-shirts are gonna be cool. I'm like looking at like strongman apparel, like hoodies and stuff. So I like kind of fit in with everybody. I don't know what I'm gonna stick out like a sore thumb.
You need a cutoff hoodie. That's what you need.
I don't know what to wear.
That sounds appropriate. A cutoff hoodie sounds actually incredibly appropriate.
I think I'm just gonna go Beavis and Butthead t-shirt.
Dude, please document all of that. I cannot wait to hear how that goes.
Show up in jean shorts and a Beavis and Butthead t-shirt, smoking a cigarette.
Probably fit right in.
Yes.
So let's talk about this sandbag. I'm really
let's
curious.
do it. Challenge segment. I love it.
So challenge segment of the day was a 150-pound sandbag, max reps squatting with it in the not the front rack, but in like a
Bear hug
position. There's a ton of gray area here. But let's start off by just saying I used a 160-pound sandbag that may or may not have been fully filled up. I feel like it was fully filled up. I think it was 160 pounds. So I'm already setting the tone that I was lifting more weight than you guys.
Overfilled.
I'll just say like it is. I got 30. Is that bad or good?
It sounds pretty good to me.
I don't think it is.
So Jason goes RP5 on these challenges.
So 30 med ball squats with 150 pounds.
But I didn't wait. So what did you guys get? Because then I'll determine if I did it right or not.
Dennis, what did you get?
I got 36.
Yeah, that sounds appropriate. Yeah, I got 30. But my 30 looked like the video that I sent you. That like, I maybe because I got to 20. I told Dennis, I was like, if I get 20, I'll be happy. Because I thought it was honestly going to be a lot harder. And I got to 20 and I was like, all right, just get 25. And I got 25 and I was like, you got to get to 30. And if you look at the video at the end, you can see me, like you can see the thought cross my mind of dropping it at 29. And I was just like, don't be that guy. So I got 30, but I mean, man, gun to my head, maybe 31. And I would have like failed, but I was toast at 30. 30 was like.
No. So you did not lap it then?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, my sandbag, I'm looking at the video. My sandbag looked bigger than yours, but I kind of had a little body language pause the bottom. So I'll give you the Dennis won.
Well, again, like there's going to be like, if you see, when you see my video, you'll see like you'll probably think like I'm not really standing up all the way at the top just because of the nature of the bag. Like you can't, like I'm kind of hunched over it the whole time, you know? So it looks like I'm not really standing all the way up, but my legs are straightening all the way. But then I'm not lapping it in the bottom at all. It slides between my legs every time.
That sounds so bad, Dennis.
And it's a slightly different bag. Right. Mine's a slightly different bag too. Mine's like longer and like a little probably thinner than yours, so it's probably easier to get my arms around it. So there's going to be gray areas no matter what.
I'm incredibly satisfied with my 30, given the other results here.
I'm gonna
30 sounds like a good like watershed number, man.
It's a good number.
When Jay said 30, I was like, that sounds like a good amount. 150 pounds.
I think our learning lesson here is, first off, I wouldn't have done that had the challenge not been presented. So cool. That's awesome. Secondly, we need to make sure that we like really explicitly, like in the future, there's no like wall ball gray area like the Hyrox that MDV was talking about, where like it's got to be so straightforward. Like we're only doing hand release push-ups, for example, or whatever. I don't know. We got to come up with something where like, so I just text you guys my video. It looks a lot like Gabe's. So anyways, you guys get a check.
Now why did you stop? Because your legs gave out or your holding the bag gave out?
If I'm being honest,
I stopped because he was like, 30.
No, I just said, I'm putting it out there to both of you guys.
I stopped because I found myself resting at the bottom like for a second, and I felt like I was cheating, and I didn't want to cheat you guys and tell you a number that like I felt like I couldn't maintain the rhythm anymore for me.
Right. Yeah, like I was pausing at the top on a bunch. Like I would do 5 and then kind of just stand there with it, which again, it's not really rest, but my legs got a little break.
Yeah.
Hindsight. But I physically couldn't stand up anymore. My legs just turned completely numb.
Yeah, for me, it was definitely like a little bit more lower back. Like towards the end, I start to like, really start to hinge and then have to like, pop my back up at the end. Yeah. And that just gets so tough. I mean, I sent you guys a video of my last 2 reps. So for me, I wouldn't even say it was legs or the grip. I could still hold on. It was more like low back, posterior chain gave out at first.
Nice. Sure. Awesome.
Well, I haven't been able to put my left foot on the ground for 2 weeks. So needless to say, I did not do the
You didn't do a pistol 150 sandbag?
Fucking imagine rupturing the other Achilles because I did something like that.
Yeah, no good. No bueno.
That'd be stupid.
I went into the gym actually. So I walk in, there's some dude at open gym and I'm like, hey man, I'm just going to like test this thing real quick. Like, don't mind me. And so I turn on the music and just like, he must have just thought it was just so random, right? Cause I just walk in, I grab a sandbag, I hit the reps, I say what's up to some people, talk, and I leave. And it's like, all right, that's what I was doing. I just wanted to test it out, see how it went. So that was a cool one, man. Are we talking about what we want to do in the future?
Well, yeah, MDV's up. MDV's got to come up with the challenge.
Yeah, this is going to be this is going to be in my wheelhouse, and this is going to be something that I can complete right now. So we're going to do 4-time 100 strict pull-ups, 200 push-ups, and 300 sit-ups.
100 strict pull-ups? What was the 200?
100 strict pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 sit-ups.
So unnecessary. So unnecessary.
200, 300.
The 100, so it's 100 strict to start in a row?
100 strict pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 sit-ups.
All right.
We're going long here, boys.
What kind of sit-up? What's the standard for the sit-up?
You can arm throw here, feet on the ground, butt's got to stay down. For the push-up, chest has to come to the deck. You got to extend your arms. And then for the pull-up, you have to start from a hang, get your chin over the bar. And we're going to be in this for probably 20 minutes, I would say, ish. Time frame? Maybe. I don't know. Who knows?
I'm going throat to bar.
Throat to bar.
Just to be clear.
Dude, just wear this microphone you have, and every time you have to hit the mic.
It'll clank.
You have to hear a clank in your headphones.
Mic to bar.
Oh, MDV. Oh, man.
Yeah, it's kind of like the middle of Murph.
Dude, it's 100. Yeah, but dude, it's 100 strict pull-ups. I'm fine. It is. Okay, challenge has been set. I appreciate the challenge. I wish you could have came up with something a lot more like shorter, but that's okay.
Well, the last couple of ones have been pretty short, right? You had the 90-second row. We had the 150 deep ball squats. You had the 90 seconds worth of pull-ups and push-ups. And this gives me something that I can do on a longer timeline as well, and probably, hopefully hang with you guys here. But if anybody's listening who wants to participate, and that sounds like an incredible amount of volume, cut it in half, 50, 100, 200, or whatever numbers look like a challenge for you. So always able to drop those numbers down a little bit. We're doing 100 strict pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 sit-ups in order.
Sit-ups are going to be the worst part of that, by the way.
100%.
What are you talking about? No
By
way.
far.
The sit-ups are going to be a piece of cake. I'm gonna be drinking a soda while I'm doing that. I mean, it's the
sit-ups are by far the worst part.
Dude, it's the 100 strict pull-ups, and then it's going to be from 100 to 200 on the push-ups that are going to suck.
No.
Push-ups are going to be the easy part.
Sit-ups are the worst part.
Push-ups are the
Guaranteed.
easiest part,
Okay.
for sure.
All right. So right now, what I'm hearing from the group, okay, is that the sit-ups are going to be the hardest part according to Dennis.
Yeah.
The push-ups are going to be the hardest part according to MDV. I think for sure it's going to be the pull-ups. Gabe?
So sit-ups.
What? Y'all got to work on your core there.
300 in a row.
So here's I think that this all goes back to Jason is in permanent maintenance phase. Like when we were talking about the sandbag squat test and you were like, this was like moderately hard. Like clearly you had like, how is a max set moderately hard? It should have been terrible or else it wasn't a max set. Same way with the push-ups. The push-ups is the one thing where like, the sit-ups, you're not going to fail it. Like if you really like are cranking the sit-ups, swinging your arms, it's like by far the worst part. The pull-ups, you're going to be limited by like, all right, my chin didn't go over the bar. I kind of got to take a break. Push-ups the same. You're just going to get to a point where you're like too pumped and you're just kind of like sitting there, like waving your arms. The sit-ups, it's mental. It's like, are you ready to hurt or are you just going to mail it in? It's 100% up here.
Yeah, you ain't going to fail a sit-up.
Yeah. Yeah. You're just going to want to stop because it sucks.
Right.
No anchoring the feet.
No anchoring the feet. You know, Gabe, I appreciate your encouragement. You're right. Maybe I have been, because even like that 90-second row, I'm
Dude, exactly.
Maybe I'm not RPE 10 Khalipa all the time. Maybe I'm like at a 9 right now. Maybe I need to step it up this week. And
I would say 8.
all right. Well, gentlemen, and for everybody, listening, we always appreciate you guys. Simple ask for the podcast. Simple, right? Leave the podcast a rating and review. It definitely helps us out to share the message with more people. We're going to keep putting out challenges. We're going to keep putting out content. We're going to keep interviewing great guests. If you have guest recommendations, if you have book recommendations, send them our way. Make sure you're on our newsletter because that I respond to. So the Jason Khalipa, like the Never Zero newsletter goes out all the time on the Wednesdays. If you respond to it, that's directly in my email. Shoot me some book recommendations or even podcast guest recommendations because we're always looking to have great conversations with great people. Gentlemen, I hope you have a kick-ass day. I'm very unexcited for the 100, 200, 300, but that means I should be doing it and keep training hard.
See ya.
Later.